Wonderful.
Thank you so much. I'm so pleased to be here, and it's just been a great conference, so thanks to all the organizers. I want to talk to you about how we've been using machine learning since 2007 to inspect optics on the NIF laser, and hopefully to show you how we've adapted the machine learning through time to use the right tool for the right job and adapt it to meet our challenges. So first, to spell out the acronym NIF, stands for the National Ignition Facility. It's the world's largest, most energetic laser, and it sits down there in the lower right corner of Lawrence Livermore National Lab. The lab as a whole is 1 square mile. It's about an hour's drive from San Francisco, a little more from here. It has 526 scientific facilities, including the world's most powerful supercomputers. So there's a lot of great resources for researchers to explore all kinds of big science projects. That's my term, big science. I like science, so these are really big science projects. Everything from probing the mysteries of the universe to understanding the relationship between genetics and cancer, to capturing carbon dioxide with microtubules and 3D printing nanoparticles. Science at every level is done at the lab, and NIF is no exception. NIF is the world's most energetic laser. If you are more familiar with the laser pointer, you might be skeptical that this building houses a laser, but if we take the roof off and look inside, you'll see what's going on. As Margot said, this is more than a football field in length. The laser starts as a weak pulse at the beginning, but it gets split and divided 192 times. You can see it's bouncing off mirrors to get more and more energy as it goes through amplifiers. Then all the beamlines have their pulses synchronized. They all hit the target at exactly the same time. The target contains hydrogen, which gets compressed under these extreme temperatures into helium and releases energy. There's a lot of exciting things you can do. This is nuclear fusion, and it's the same process that fuels the sun and the stars. So researchers from around the world can come to NIF and do their experiments to study stars and giant planets. They can study plasmas, nuclear fusion. So this is a great laboratory for experimenters everywhere. And because it operates at such high energies, we know by design that we are operating the laser at energies twice the intensity that can actually put a pit of damage in the laser optics, all the optics throughout the facility. And so we designed and built the facility with the idea of removable modules for the optics, so the optics could be removed from the beamline when they get damaged. We can repair them, recycle them, put them back on the beamline, and extend the life of these highly valuable optics. They're pretty pricey, so you want to keep them working as long as possible. So this loop is called the optics recycle loop, and it allows us to operate the laser at the extreme energies needed to do the experiments. And we've been using machine learning since 2007 to help enable and automate that loop. So here's just a great view I like of one of our inspection systems. This laser bay is one of 2 identical laser bays. This is 96 beamlines, and the length of it goes all the way to that back wall. Like I said, it's a football field in length. The schematic here is what's inside just one of those beam tubes. So you could see the light blue squares and the light pink squares are different kinds of optics. After a NIF shot, we put our own illumination through this beam line, and you can see there's one camera down below the schematic, right at the base of it. That camera is used to inspect all the optics throughout that entire baseball field length. So when we take a picture of one optic, it looks like that image on the left, and that image is of an optic that actually has a damage site on it. That damage site looks like 4 footprints that you might see in the snow. It's a characteristic signature of this particular inspection. And you could see when that blue cutout is put at the bottom, we show you thumbnails of other images that appear in the through focus series, when the camera moves to take a picture of another object, you can see the defect that we care about moves out of focus and generates lots of noise and ringing. And those are things we want to ignore. We also want to ignore camera flaws, which look kind of quite a lot like a defect. So as previous speakers have said, we're using image analysis, feature extraction. We're measuring everything we can about every defect that we could find. And we had too many false alarms. And so this is back in 2007, we decided to try using ensembles of decision trees, also known as random forests, to classify the damage so we could distinguish the damage from the things we want to ignore. So the input to random forests is a text file, and you have to have extracted all the features along with the truth labels. You can visualize this in two-dimensional feature space as a cartoon if you had only two features. You could see you want to separate your red and your blue classes, and your decision tree is going to draw the lines optimally to separate your two classes. When you have 17 measurements like we have, you have a 17-dimensional feature space. Your decision surface gets a little more complicated, but you've got the same idea. Now, a single decision tree can do pretty well if you've got really clean, perfect data, which nobody in the world really does for a real problem. Data is usually messier than that and noisier, and your labels aren't always right. So it turns out if you take different subsets of your data to grow different trees and let all your trees vote with the diversity of knowledge that they have, again, diversity wins, you get a better answer than if you just used the one tree. So this is the concept behind it. And so what we did, as previous speakers have said, we spent a big box year collecting data, cleaning the data, logging the data, and data preparation is just part of machine learning. So we spent a year doing that, growing our decision trees, continuously testing, rigorously evaluating the results. And we did pretty well. We had in the low 90% accuracy, and we thought that was pretty good. But here's where understanding your data works really well, knowing your application space. We thought we had only 500 data points, but we've had all these people working for a year to give us data. So we thought, what could we do? How can we get more? We've got many, many thousands of images. We should have more data. Then we realized, well, we take pictures of this defect every single day, so we can go back to our analysis to when we found the same defect every day and attach the same label as what the shot directors and other experts did. And this gave us an order of magnitude more data points. Now we had 6,000 data points, and our accuracy went up even higher. We were able to reduce our false alarms even more. And so if we looked at the false alarms that we would have had with the image analysis alone, you see the top chart where there's lots of yellow and red alerts, which means this beamline needs someone to go look and make sure that the damage is being reported correctly, that we know the health of our optics. After machine learning, we get this nice, beautiful, clean summary chart on the bottom where all the false alarms are removed. So this reporting allows the schedule of shots to stay on a rapid pace. We try to do about 400 shots a year, so there's only a couple hours between shots, and there's lots of things to do. We don't want a lot of time looking at the at unnecessary data points. So we had some really good success with this, and we applied this to a couple of other inspection systems. Ensembles of decision trees, random forests, they did really well for us. By using it on several different camera systems, we were able to get a list of damage sites that need to be repaired. So we could schedule the optics to be removed from the beamline, brought into a laboratory. In this laboratory, operators used to do a labor-intensive process, a couple shifts a day, where skilled operators would work to repair one damaged site at a time until we decided to automate it. And that's our automation team, and extra credit if you can figure out which one's me. So here's the process. Operators used to manually go to every damaged site that we would expressly tell them where the damaged sites were from our inspection results. They would go to each one, and the repair would be a CO2 laser ablating or removing the material in the shape of a cone in this spiral sequence, as you can see. And the operator would have to watch it very carefully because you can start to erase damage, but if it's got a certain shape or a certain depth, you might not erase it all. And the dynamic video would really help the human operator discern whether any little bit of damage was left over at the end. That little bit is called remnant damage, and we really don't want to have any remnant damage because that's just going to start growing again, and all the work we did to repair the site would be lost. So you could see, this might be interesting to watch for a little bit, but this video is still going, and you don't have to pay attention to it as much as they did. So you can see this is not going to be a fun job. So what we wanted to do was we noticed that after years of doing this, the operators always took a single picture of the final repaired site. And we know from the operators who watched the video what the answer was. Is there remnant damage or is there not? So you can see it's nearly inconclusive if you look only at the final image. You see the ones outlined in red have remnant damage. The ones outlined in green do not. And I can't even tell you why, because I'm not enough of an expert to see where the remnant damage is. Again, using the video, maybe we'd have a chance. But just looking at the still image, it's nearly inconclusive. So in 2016, we decided to use a couple of different machine learning methods and see how well we could do. So we collated thousands of the images, again, data preparation. We collected the answers of the humans who had watched the videos for years. And we tried to do a head-to-head comparison. We tried using decision trees where we had to extract the features from the image. This is challenging because we don't know what features we're looking for. If the human eye can't see it, how are you supposed to tell the algorithms what to look for? But we tried it anyway. We did the best we could with texture measures and so forth. And then in parallel, we decided to use some of the deep learning methods, the transfer learning that's out in the world. The nice thing about the transfer learning is it does feature discovery for you. It's a bit of a black box. You don't always know exactly what features it's looking at. And you can be fooled, like the cows on the beach that were misclassified because of context. But we put these two head-to-head, and here's just an array of all the conditions under which our algorithms had to work. And you can see that the decision trees had about a 93% accuracy, which I thought was pretty good, given we didn't really know what we were looking for. But all the transfer learning methods seemed to do better. And so we thought, well, okay, if it's doing better, let's, we put everything through rigorous testing. It had better cross-validation accuracy. We just wanted to make sure it's such a black box. We wanted to make sure it wasn't cheating, like the cow on the beach. So we used a method called deep dreams or backpropagation, where we can get a heat map to see where the deep learner was looking just before it made its final decision. And so in the yellow ellipse is an indication from human operators where they believe there is remnant damage. In the red heat maps overlaid on the image, you could see where the deep learner was focused before it went through its decision layers. And we said, well, that looks relevant enough to us that we believe it's not cheating. These images were chosen at random. We selected a couple dozen at random. And in each case, we felt confident it wasn't just looking at the context or some other illumination, but actually looking at relevant features. So that was good. So then we said, okay, well, we've got this great addition to our toolkit now. And so let's see if we can apply it to the next problem. Well, the next problem was to use a microscope to find even smaller damage, so that when we had an optic off the beamline, we could repair everything on it, not just what we saw with those cameras that are so far away from the damage sites. But let's look at a camera that's under a microscope, and you could see 20 micron sites. But the problem with looking at 20 micron sites is you can find a whole bunch of stuff at 20 microns. The more you look, the more crazy stuff you can find. So there's a lot of things at that size, and we only wanted to find 2 of them. Because of the research we did, we knew that only 2 of those morphologies are going to grow into something that be a damaged site. Everything else is just going to be stagnant. It's not going to be impacted by the laser light. So we wanted a way to classify 2 out of those 12 classifications. And so we went through the paces of applying the deep learning again, and this time we had to get our data into a color image because we had two different illuminations that the human expert would use. They use a backlight image, which is mostly dark, and a coaxial light, which is mostly bright, and they use both of those to give them depth information as well as surface information, and that's how the human could tell the difference and give us a truth label. So we wanted the machine learner to have both of those too. So we put one of them in the blue channel and one in the green channel. We had a neutral red channel, and we created a RGB image that we can now use in all the available models for transfer learning, which is what they typically take as input. So what we did here worked pretty well. We took our deep learners, we did a transfer learning, it worked pretty well. You can see in the third column, we got like 97, 98% with some of those transfer learning methods. But then we had the idea, what if we took the wonderful feature discovery of the deep learner and combined it with the excellent diversified decision making of the decision trees? And so we took the last layer off of our deep learner, and we stuck our decision tree algorithms on the end of that. By doing that, we got an extra 1% accuracy using the exact same data. And we proved this to be statistically significant, looking at five-fold cross-validation and doing the statistical tests. Then we said, well, I wonder if this applies to our other projects. So we went back to our remnant data project, which is the 2-class problem versus the 12-class problem. So there's that difference. But nonetheless, we went again from about a 98% accuracy to a 99% accuracy by just changing the decision-making layer on our deep learning algorithm. So we were really excited about this. This was done, in fact, with work of a summer student that was there that summer, that he was just going to re-implement what he had done before, but he ended up taking it another step forward. This is great. So since 2007, we've been using machine learning. We've been adapting our toolkit and our techniques and applying them thoughtfully with rigorous testing, doing comparisons where necessary. And so far, we've had really good results. We've been able to increase the speed with which we can do our shot cycles. So we are up to 400 shots per year. The automation of the repair process saved the human labor-intensive parts of that clean room laboratory work for repairing the optics. And the machine learning informs the optics recycle loop continuously so that we can maintain to fire the laser at those super high energies that actually put little pits of damage into the optics. So this has been the work of many contributors over the years. We've had about 30 people contributing, almost 10 of those, maybe more than 10 are interns. And we have 22 production applications that we've been using with our toolkit. Thank you very much.